But let's wait one more minute. People are still coming. I want to thank you all for coming. I know people are used to doing this at night, but I had requests for a daytime presentation, so we're trying at 2 o'clock. Today we'll be talking about the Nativity in art from early Christianity through the 20th century. Okay, Tom's going to read the passage.
Caesar Augustus ordered for a census of the whole world to be taken, and everyone went to his own town to be registered. So Joseph set out for Nazareth to Bethlehem in order to be registered with Mary, his betrothed, who was with child. The time came for her to have her child, and Mary gave birth to a son. She wrapped him in swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. In the countryside close by, there were shepherds who lived in the fields and watched their flocks during the night. The angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone round them. They were terrified, but the angel said, "Do not be afraid. Listen, I bring you news of great joy. Today in the town of Bethlehem, a Savior has been born to you. He is Christ the Lord. And here is a sign for you. You will find the baby wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger." And suddenly, with the angel, there was a great throng of the heavenly host, praising God and singing, "Glory to God in the highest heaven, and peace to men who enjoy his favor."
Thank you, Tom. We're going to start with my favorite artist, Peter Bruegel. You may not have heard of him. He's from what is now Holland, Belgium. This is his view of the numbering at Bethlehem when they went to pay their taxes, when Caesar Augustus declared that everyone had to pay taxes, and each had to go to his own city. So Mary and Joseph had to go to Bethlehem. Now, does this look like Bethlehem to you? No, it's Peter Bruegel's hometown. So here are the people paying their taxes. You can see the tax collector in the middle window. And Mary and Joseph arrive, Mary riding the donkey, and they brought an ox along. Some people speculate perhaps to pay their taxes. There's a man on the left getting beer out of this enormous keg. So here, who carries a saw and why? You see this enormous saw. So who is that?
The carpenter.
Yeah, who was a carpenter? Joseph. Joseph was a carpenter. In art history, these are called attributes. If I'm an artist, they might paint me with a brush. If I'm a photographer, with a camera. But Joseph was a carpenter, so they painted him with a saw. So here's another part of that scene, but does this look like Bethlehem to you? Not exactly. It's somewhere in Belgium where there's a frozen lake and people are walking on the frozen lake. Children are playing. They're skating. The bare tree kind of emphasizes how cold it is. And so does this setting sun. Here you can see the cute little children. They've gotten pans of some kind, and they're pushing themselves across the ice. This man is putting on his skates. This child is spinning a top. Now, what you learn is that Mary and Joseph are almost never there in the beginning of art history. Instead, there are two figures that are always there: the ox and the ass are always present. This is the earliest image of the Nativity that we have. It's a 4th century sarcophagus with the ox and the ass guarding the baby Jesus. And why is that? Because in the Bible, the ox and the ass were seen as Old Testament prophecies of the Messiah. They are always present in nativity scenes. Isaiah 1:3, the ox knows its master, and the ass its master's stall. But Israel, in other words, the Jewish people, did not recognize that this was the Messiah. They had no knowledge, no discernment. So the animals recognize Jesus, but nobody else does. So where do these animals come from? Apocryphal Gospels. These are Gospels not in the Bible. They were not considered worthy of being in the canon. They're most likely legends. This one reads, on the 3rd day, Mary left the cave where Jesus was born and went into a stable and laid the baby in a manger. There the ox and the ass worshipped him. I think they're very cute here. The ox and the ass, but just behind the crib, which kind of looks like a feed trough for an animal. And here they are worshiping the baby Jesus, who's got on his swaddling clothes. Another image of the ox and the ass with the baby. Jesus is in a wicker basket in a stable, and the man to the right is a shepherd. And this is a witnessing gesture. This means, yes, I was there and this really happened. The ox and the ass again, guarding the baby. And the next scene shows that the Magi are on the way. But notice those are not the Magi we picture. The Bible does not say the Magi were kings. They don't get to be kings until the 12th century in art. Here's Mary trying to figure out what's happened. How did she give birth to this baby? And there's a star just above her on the stable, which the wise men followed to get there. And then the donkey is trying to feed the baby Jesus something. This is an ivory diptych, an ivory book cover from the 6th century. And at the very top, you see the Nativity. The other are scenes from the life of Christ. So here's the Nativity. Joseph, and what does he have with him? His saw. So we know it's Joseph. And the baby, and the ox and the ass. Mary off to the side. She's not very involved because she was not the she didn't understand what was going on. And then the ox itself represents the book of Luke. And what chapter or what book was the Nativity in? The birth of Jesus was in Luke. This is the same scene. You can see Joseph with his saw. there was a midwife. Now, this is in myth and legend, not the Bible. Kathy, were you reading this? Salome. Salome. Was this Roger?
No, I'm not supposed to, I can't read it,
Robbie's gonna do it.
Robbie?
So how do you pronounce it? Salome?
I pronounce it Salome.
Salome?
but
Salome. Salome.
Salome, a midwife from apocryphal Gospels, and Salome went in and said to Mary, "Show yourself, for controversy has risen about you." And Salome insisted that she examine Mary. She put in her finger and cried out and said, "Woe is me for mine unbelief, because I have tempted the living God. And behold, my hand is dropping off as it burned with fire." And she bent her knees before the Lord, saying, "O God of my fathers, remember that I am the seed of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob." And behold, an angel of the Lord stood by her, saying to her, "Salome, Salome, the Lord has heard you. Put your hand on the infant, and you will have safety." And Salome was immediately cured.
So we see that image on this ivory throne of the Emperor Maximian in the year 550. And on the left top panel, you see the image, the story of the midwife, where in the top we have the Nativity, and then below is Mary, and Salome has questioned her virginity, so her hand withered up. And she's complaining to Mary, "Look what happened to my hand." Mary doesn't have a lot of sympathy. So here she is showing her withered hand to Mary. And above we have the Nativity and the animals and the star. Here is Salome below the Nativity. It's kind of like Jesus is on a little altar. And the ox and the ass are over here.
what century is
That one was, let's see. That's about 6th.
this? 6?
Mhm. Another ivory is this one with the angels appearing to the shepherd. The animals are here, and Mary here. The animal ox and the ass are guarding the baby Jesus. And then down below, the midwives are giving Jesus a bath. This is called a continuous narrative, where you start with one story, and then you go to the next chapter. And here's Joseph. As you will see, Joseph is usually out of the picture and kind of out of it. And that's because he was not the father of this child. So he does not get to participate. An Anatolian manuscript shows Joseph down here, very confused, and Mary, and the animals here, and the shepherds in the fields, the angel appearing to them. This is the Nativity in the church in France at Vézelay, 12th century. And here's the Annunciation to Mary, the visitation between Mary and Elizabeth, and then the Nativity down here. So here's the Nativity, Mary lying down, Joseph still looking confused, and baby Jesus here, and the midwife. I think they look very French with their long faces, skinny people. Chartres Cathedral in south of Paris. And this always bothers people. Joseph has lost his head. Well, that's because this is almost 1,000 years old. And things happen. Things happen to sculpture. So somebody knocked this head off. And here's Mary, the ox and the ass, and then baby Jesus lying in a thing that looks like a combination of an altar and a crib with the hay here, and the donkey is eating the hay. This is a 13th century mosaic in Rome, the Santa Maria Maggiore. And the angels are up here. Mosaics are made of tiny little pieces of stone called tesserae. And you put them together like a puzzle. And it's very complicated. All of these are little pieces of marble. So the angel speaks to the shepherds. Joseph is down here. Mary, the baby, and the ox and the ass. And this is a stable. Another scene where the midwives bathe baby Jesus. Here's the little place where they bathe him. Looks like a font in a church for holy water. So Mary is lying here looking down at what's happening to her baby. This is the earlier scene of the baby with the ox and the ass. And Joseph is talking to Isaiah. That's because Isaiah prophesied that this was going to happen. So there are the midwives. And the little font, and the baby, and Joseph, Mary, the ox and the ass, and over here come the Magi. Duccio was an artist from Siena, just down the road from Florence, but that's a completely different sensibility. It's very Byzantine and not naturalistic. So here's Mary and the bathing. Mary is in front of a stable. The ox and the ass inside, hovering over the baby. And Joseph is off here to the side. The angels are celebrating this event. Joseph, the midwives, the shepherds, and Mary and the baby. And this is a star symbolizing the divinity of Jesus. This is a close-up of Jesus, the ox and the ass, and Joseph over here. Here's Duccio's version of the midwives. It's a very large baby for a newborn. He looks about 2. So the midwives pouring in water to this tub. Then Giotto is called the father of Western art because he made people look naturalistic. He made bodies have weight. You can see Joseph is sitting firmly on the ground. These shepherds are standing firmly on the ground. You can imagine bodies under this drapery. The same with Mary. She is lifting the baby from the midwife. And here's Joseph. blue on her dress is made from lapis lazuli, and it flakes off, blue flakes off, and doesn't really adhere to plaster. And this was painted on wet plaster, so it doesn't last but 1,000 years. There's a very sweet eye contact between Mary and her baby. Back to the stable with the ox and the ass. The midwives below, bathing him. Joseph over here. And the angels. And the ox and the ass here. The baby's nearly always swaddled. This is a German artist with a very different sensibility than the Italian ones. South German master in 1350. This is kind of doesn't look like a very sturdy stable. The ox and the ass. The angel talking to the shepherds. Mary and the baby. Joseph trying to help. He's helping pour the water into the tub so the midwife can bathe the baby. And over here, you get the man who paid for it. If you pay for it, you get to be in it. So this is the donor with his coat of arms and the church he also gave to the community. So he will be recognized by everyone. Joseph trying to help, the midwife, and the donor. Another German painting where Joseph's really trying to help. He's cooking dinner. He's built a little fire, and he's got a skillet, and he's cooking dinner for Mary and baby Jesus. The ox and the ass are always there. There's the stable. I like the expressions or the faces of these animals. And Mary with a tender moment with her baby. And Joseph, bless his heart, trying to cook dinner. Another Italian artist, Gentile da Fabriano, in the early Renaissance, 1423. And you get a starry night, angel telling the shepherds on the hillside that a baby has been born. Mary kneeling before baby Jesus on the ground, the ox and the ass in front of a cave. Some of the things that were written said that Jesus was born in a cave. And Joseph is asleep. Here are the midwives that are worn out. So this cave, in this part of the world, animals were kept in caves, not stables. So this artist is trying to be true to the area. And baby Jesus lies on what is called an aureole, or a sunburst of light. And the ox and the ass are paying close attention. Joseph still doesn't understand. And here are the weary midwives. They've worked so hard to deliver this baby. Lorenzo Monaco in 1400 shows Joseph in his usual posture, Mary with a star on her shoulder, which indicates her divinity. the star here, ox and the ass, and the shepherds. These shepherds look entirely different. And here's Joseph looking over here, because here comes the entourage of the Magi. And he's scratching his head, trying to figure out who they are. Mary kneels before her baby, puts Jesus on the end of her cloak, so she doesn't have to put him on the ground. And of course, the ox and the ass are here. Now, in this period in Florence, there was a scary Dominican priest named Savonarola. Just look at him. Would you like to have him looking at you every Sunday at church? And he preached hellfire and damnation for people. Well, here, I've got somebody who's going to talk about this.
I'll get the mic for you.
While she's doing that, it's the beginning of the Reformation before the Reformation. Most people don't know about that. But in the 14th and 15th centuries, 1300s and 1400s, a lot of different people were speaking out. People like Gabriel Biel, Duns Scotus, people you don't know. And this man also was doing it from within the Catholic Church, which was especially dangerous. So Savonarola was very upset with the morality of Catholic clergy and with the citizens of Florence. He called for strict measures to be put in place of morality reform, and he also called to remove the Pope because of morality charges. So, the Dominicans were very brilliant. Their order is a teaching order. St. Teresa out here as Dominican nuns, and St. Thomas Aquinas was a Dominican. So Savonarola, instead of concentrating on theology, was concentrating on morality. That inflamed the people, it inflamed the church, and so his days were numbered. So he preached fire and brimstone, yes, against immorality, and the general corruption of the Catholic Church and wealthy aristocrats like Lorenzo de' Medici in particular. His sermons played to packed audiences from the pulpit of San Marco, itself a Medici-sponsored church. Savonarola went further than that. He ordered that luxury items, books, be burned in Florence's main piazza. And this was called the Bonfire of the Vanities, later used for titles in literature. On May 23rd, 1498, the Florentines hung Savonarola and burned his body. Actually, it was done by the Franciscans. And before they did that, they tortured him until he wrote a confession. 3 days later, he withdrew the confession, and they decided to hang him because they didn't want him limiting their immoral practices. Botticelli, an artist, of course, attended the sermons of Savonarola and stopped painting pagan subjects because of his conversion, and he turned to religious subjects. So here's the beginning of the spirit of Reformation, which comes to the forefront with John Paul XXIII in the 1960s.
Thank you, Roger. Okay, other imagery, like a bright light, is mentioned into these apocryphal Gospels, like the Proto-Evangelium of James. A great light appeared so that the eyes could not endure it. In the Pseudo-Matthew, when Mary entered the cave, it began to shine as if the sun were there. Thus the divine lights illuminated the cave. Now, another very interesting figure from this period, from in the mid-1300s, is St. Bridget.
Bridget had a vision of being at the manger when Jesus was born. She reported, "I beheld a virgin of extreme beauty in a white mantle, and with her was an old man, and they brought with them an ox and an ass. They entered the cave, and the man tied the animals to the manger. He went outside and brought to the virgin a burning candle. Bridget stood in prayer, and suddenly gave birth to her son, from whom radiated such a rare light and splendor that the sun was not comparable to it, nor did the candle give any light at all. The divine light totally annihilated the material light." She said, "Suddenly I saw the glorious infant lying on the ground, naked and shining. His body was pure from any kind of soil and impurity."
Okay, then in art, after this vision was spread around of what Bridget had seen in her vision, artists started picking that up. This is Robert Campion in 1480. So you see Mary in a white tunic, which is what Bridget had said. Joseph with his feeble candle. The midwives are all dressed up in Renaissance garb. The angels. A falling down stable, and a road that leads out into the distance. At this time, artists were trying to show, I can paint and show you the distance, not just what's right in the front. Here are the shepherds. This one with a bagpipe. Shepherds usually are shown with instruments like bagpipes, as opposed to harps. These were more lower class, and so that's why you see them with the shepherds. And here's Joseph with his feeble candle. And all of that comes from Bridget. This is the artist showing, I can show you way out into the distance, even out to that lake out there. Roger van der Weyden from Flanders has Mary at the center. She's usually on the side. But here you get Joseph with his feeble candle, the ox and the ass, a kind of a ruined stable with a Roman column, little bitty angels, and the donor, the man who paid for it. We know he's rich because he's wearing fur. There were sumptuary laws that only allowed the upper class people to wear fur. So he is. And Mary has placed baby Jesus on the cloak, her cloak, on the ground. And Joseph with his feeble candle, and the ox and the ass. Petrus Christus, 1444. Joseph emphasizing he's an older man, leaning on his staff. Angels. The shepherds are coming in from the hillside. And here's Mary wearing blue, which is the color of royalty, because Mary was seen as the queen of heaven. And here's the baby. From Bridget again, here's Mary in her white tunic. Baby Jesus lying on her outer cloak. The ox and the ass. And Joseph with his feeble candle. Pretty large baby for a newborn. Hans Memling in 1470 continues with Bridget's imagery, with her white dress. And in this period, in the Northern Renaissance, in Northern Europe, that was the center of fabric production. So artists like to give their figures a whole lot of drapery. I mean, there's no way Mary could have walked in this dress. But the artist was showing off. I'm showing you, I've seen these fabrics. The angels, Joseph, his candle, and looking out through the stable into the landscape. One reason they show the baby nude is to show that he really was a little baby boy, a real human. Because if he hadn't been a human, the crucifixion would have meant nothing. He had to suffer and die and be resurrected to be the Messiah. So they wanted to show he wasn't a God totally to start with. He was a real baby boy. There's a famous art historian who wrote a whole book on the sexuality of Christ and traces how artists showed him nude. This is a 15th century book of hours, which is a book, a devotional book that a rich person could have with painted pictures inside a small book. This is, of course, Joseph and Mary. Jesus lying on her cloak. The donkey very interested in this baby. Chubby little thing. Now the candle has become more elaborate. It's put in a lantern, which Joseph has. Mary with her long hair, blue dress, and the baby on her tunic. So this is a lantern with a candle in it. Some art historians say this is an image of the devil who's running away because this baby's been born. This is an illuminated manuscript called the Trévecheur, a French duke, the Duc de Berry, 1412. God at the top, holding the world. If you ever wondered what God looked like, here he is. Shining down divine light on this baby with the shepherds in the hillside, the stable, Mary kneeling, and Joseph off to the side, but paying attention. This is a 15th century book of hours. Now Joseph's getting with it. He's trying to help. So he's picked up the baby and is cuddling him while Mary takes a break and reads her book. She's probably reading Isaiah, that a virgin will conceive. The ox and the ass are back here. It's a very sweet, tender scene with Joseph and the baby. This is Robert Campin in northern France in 1420, where Joseph still has his feeble candle. Mary's kneeling in her blue dress and has Jesus on her cloak. Little bitty angels and shepherds coming in from the hillside. This is a young shepherd. The ox and the ass are over here. The shepherds, Joseph with his candle, Mary and the baby. And this is another case of if you pay for it, you get to be in it. So here's the cardinal who paid for it. Or Here's his cardinal's hat. He's got the tonsure hairstyle. And he brought his dog with him. The shepherds, Mary and Joseph, and Jesus, who's crossed his little feet, which I think is cute. You can see the cardinal here with his elaborate red robes and probably ermine cape, and his dog, and Mary adoring her child. This is a small painting in London, Little Gerard, in 1475, and it's got a really sweet Mary with an oval-shaped face, very doll-like, and you can see the ox and the ass peeking from the back, and Joseph over here with angels, and then an angel in the heavens talking to the shepherds. You can see the baby here giving off light. The ox, Joseph, and a very sweet Mary, very young Mary. So this artist is suggesting that Christ is the light of the world. He's giving off the light that illuminates Mary's face and the angels around. And you can see the ox there. And the shepherds on the hillside. This is a very celebratory nativity with a lot of light coming from the baby, shining on the faces of all the people around. And here's Joseph, still has his candle. Shepherds coming in. And these little angels are just beside themselves, singing hallelujah. Mary looking from the left side, looking at Jesus, and angels lit by the light of Christ. And here are these wild little angels, really so excited and happy. And Joseph helps again. Here he is drying diapers by the fire. Montaigne in Italy shows some typical shepherds coming in to worship. Mary with cherubim flying all around her, these little bodiless angels, these little red things. And baby Jesus and Joseph still asleep. Albert Dürer, a German artist in 1510, has a very different Mary, a very much a stout woman compared to that Gertrude Mary. The ox and the ass over here, Joseph, and the family who paid for it. Here's the daddy and his sons and the mother and her daughters. To be sure they're in the picture. Here's the father and the sons with their coats of arms, and the mother and the daughters. And the ox and the ass over here. Mary looking very different from some of the ones we've seen earlier. And finally, we have a Chinese artist This is an artist who painted this in China in 2001. And you can see the angel, Mary with the baby. This is Joseph with his feeble candle. The shepherds coming in with their sheep. And the ox and the ass. It's very sweet, but an entirely different image of this nativity. Now, next month, January 6th, we will celebrate the Epiphany with the Adoration of the Magi. Epiphany is January 6, 2025. And we will see the Magi is the favorite subject for artists because you get a cast of thousands and you get very rich people and you get a lot of fancy clothes. These are the three Magi coming to worship the baby, but look at their clothes. And then there's their entourage going all the way back to the eastern part of that world, following the star to Bethlehem. So we'll finish with that next month. So thank you for coming. I hope that enriches your Christmas. You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Sherry, I have a question. I noticed in the Renaissance scenes, the baby Jesus is this little thing lying on the floor, and you hardly notice him. It's Mary and Joseph and the other figures that are painted. And this new little baby is just kind of an object there.
Yeah, that's right. Mary and Joseph are larger than life, and Jesus is tiny. But that may be showing his vulnerability and his, he is just a baby, and it reminds us that this baby will grow up and be crucified and suffer and die. So,
And Mary and Joseph had all kinds of clothes on, and baby Jesus.
his nude, yeah, to show that he was truly a man. Because if he wasn't, he wouldn't have suffered. Thank you for coming. Thank you. See you in January.
That was interesting.